Okay, so I wanted to touch base with y'all and make sure that we understood where everything was headed and what we were achieving and what we can do better at. So I tried to make comments on most people's weekly essays. If I did make a comment, that means that I didn't see anything that concerned me. It means that your thesis seemed good and you seem to be able to go about carrying it out. If I did make a comment, please address that as you go forward. If I made a comment, it was most likely about the thesis. Because if you got sidetracked on that thesis, you may not have been able to achieve much. But so I'm already ahead of myself. Let me go back. The ABs look good on the whole. I made very few comments on the ABs because I want you to remember the annotated bibliographies are a research document. It's a research document for you, written by you. So while I gave you things to say in there, if there's other things you find that you need to put in there to make it useful, then you should do that. But the stuff that I put in there are the things that I think are the most germane, the most useful as you go forward. Other instructors will have other things that are in there. Remember, the way that I talked about it is I want you to be able to take the stuff that you put in the AB and put that directly into the essay. And so the things that I have you put in there are things that I see working the best. If there's other things you see, make sure you put those in there. As such, y'all figured out how I am. It's a completion grade. So if you look like you really tried, then you got a good grade on it. If not, then it didn't. I hope in doing those ABs that it made it easier when it went time to do the essay, because you'd already been thinking about it. And that's why I would tell you again, look at the topic before you start to do your AB, so you know what you're actually trying to achieve. The effort looked pretty good. Most of y'all seem to get it. I will say this. If you pay attention to the stuff that I asked you for in the ABs, you'll recognize pretty early on that much of the way that I'm asking you to structure the stuff in the ABs will follow the paragraph model that we've been talking about so many other times, because it's the same information you need. That level of topic, point, evidence, explanation, all those will be there and available to you if you do a good job on the AB. Alright, so that's enough about that. The essays, again, the weakness I saw on the last week's essays were a weakness of thesis. So, like, I gave y'all, tell me what was important about art or artistry in the medieval period. Many of y'all just took that and used that as the thing itself. Art was important, or artistry was important. Well, that's no good, you silly people. You can't say that. I saw a lot of y'all switching out and using importance, significance, influence. Those all say pretty much the same thing, but that's not good enough. You got to tell me why it's important, why it's significant, why it's influential. Not just to say that it is or was influential or it was significant or was important. You've got to supply the importance, such as artistry in the medieval period assisted the commoners in understanding, or the illiterate people of understanding these ideas and biblical ideas, something like that. But you can't just say it's important. If you're going to tell me important, you have to tell me why it's important and to whom. And hopefully that'll get you past just using important or significant or influence. But when I did see something going amiss, it was at the thesis level. And I think y'all figured out by now that if a thesis is rough, it's hard to get back on your track and get anything achieved. Again, I hope the ABs made it easier when you went to write it, because you've already been thinking about it and you've already got something kind of in your head. Alright, this week, last week we were on the ABs. You did an annotated bibliography on the pieces, on the source work you've been doing anyway. So it's stuff you've been reading and you just wrote up an annotated bibliography about it. Okay, so that was my slow way of getting us into it. This week, you're going to do some annotated bibliographies over some articles that talk about 4 of the pieces. So I put up some articles for you, and this week I did the research. Next week you'll do the research, but this week I wanted to make sure we're doing this nice and slow. Next week you'll do the research, but this week I did. So I chose 4 articles. I think one over Salisbury, DeBerry, Salutati, and then there's one more, and I can't remember what it is right at this second. And I think I'm asking you to do some of those, A-B some of those up. And then I'm asking you for the essay to use one of your ABs and one of your sources. It would seem to me that the way that you would approach this, if you're reading the DeBerry article, that you would that you would use the DeBerry piece inside of the essay, so that the source would be a DeBerry piece and the DeBerry article, and bring those together inside of your essay. And so make some really unique point about that. Remember, the topic here is about proper education. You're going to notice as we get further along the semester, I'm doing less with the prompt, because I want you to do more. So that's why it's a little, I'm not giving you as much. Proper education, that's what I'm asking for. The point that I would make about proper education in the medieval period is this. Their purpose in educating, or the best educated, is not the most educated. Not the most educated. You'll notice that this section is about the liberal arts, the arts and sciences. And so what they were looking for as far as what they considered the best educated, not the most educated, but in fact the most well-rounded, that you would have input, or you would have thought about more things rather than really knowing something deeply, that you would know more things. That's why they had the trivium, the quadrivium. So the trivium would be grammar, so learning language, learning how to use it. Then you go to logic, so then you would learn how to make argument. And then you know rhetoric, and rhetoric is how to make the argument seem persuasive. And then you would do the quadrivium, which were all the kind of mathematical sciences: geometry, astronomy, music. There's one more, and I don't have it in my hand right now. But that's the quadrivium. And those are the things they thought would make a well-rounded person. So there you go. Not the most educated, but the best educated. All right. Hopefully that gives you some guidance as you go forward. So make your thesis on the most proper educated. Therefore, I'm only giving the topic. You're going to have to supply the argument, and it better not be important, significant, or influence. It should be more well thought out than that. But then give me the reason too. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.